Hello and welcome to the Women's Football Show here on PRZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm delighted to say I'm joined this morning by Alison McConnell and Motherwell manager Paul Brownlee. Paul, how are you getting on?
I'm good, thank you.
Brilliant. We are going to talk about today the Scotland games from the weekend. We'll take a look at the upcoming fixtures of this weekend in the SWPL and of course take a look at that all-important title race. Start off with Scotland, however. Friday night we've seen a 0-0 draw away in Serbia. Here is what Pedro Martínez Losa had to say about the match. It's all about qualifying for the Euros. That's what this campaign is about. Every game is pressure. I'm used to it. I've been working like this since I was 18 years old. We know that if we finish first, second or third in the group, then we can qualify for the playoffs and make it to the European Championships. Since the draw was made, our ambition is to finish first in this group, and that has not changed. Alison, a 0-0 draw on Friday night away to Serbia. What are your thoughts from that game?
I have to be honest and say I found it dull. I thought it was quite an uninspiring performance. I think Scotland are the top seeds in this group. They should be expected to go and win the group and win it comfortably. I thought there was a lack of cohesion about the team, a lack of creativity in the team. I think what you've seen across repeated campaigns is a toothlessness from Scotland in the final third, and I just don't see that has been addressed. I thought Scotland lacked any real menace up front, and I think it's going to be a problem across the course of this campaign.
Paul, is he under pressure as the women's national team manager?
I've seen him be given time. Obviously the SFA put a lot of trust in him. They give him a new contract, but I definitely think that Tuesday's a must-win. Even at this stage in the competition, it's your second game. I think Pedro came out after the game and Friday and said it was a positive result. I think, in my opinion, that's games that Scotland should be winning, and I think even at this Tuesday at Hampden is a must-win.
Yeah, I think probably what he needs at Hampden is a performance as much as a win. I think what you have to see is compelling evidence that Scotland are capable of performing at elite level, that they are capable of getting back to major tournaments, and I'm not sure there's been that kind of evidence across recent games. I think when you look at the quality that they're going to be up against if they get to the playoffs, and you would expect that Scotland will get to the playoffs barring a catastrophe, but when you look at the teams that they could meet at the playoff section, the bar will rise quite considerably, and I think there's still question marks just now for me whether Scotland can compete and cope against teams of a bigger magnitude.
Paul, you touched on that new contract that Pedro was given not that long ago. He has players such as Erin Cuthbert who are obviously bossing it down in England. Does he have the ammunition at his disposal to make Scotland a successful unit?
I think it's a difficult one. I know you mentioned Erin and who is world class. You know, I watched the game on Friday and I thought maybe Erin at points could be more effective higher up the pitch. I think when we speak about that lack of creativity at times, and you know everything Erin's got in her locker, you know she's a top player. She plays with top players week in, week out. You know we could see her in Friday a couple of times getting really frustrated in the game as well. But I think for me, even get her a wee bit higher in the game. I think the quality's there. You know, you can see it. It's just, can we just build a better connection at points? You know, is there an opportunity to create more within the games? Because I think, you know, the players will be disappointed with Friday night. You know, and as Alison said, there's an opportunity now on Tuesday. You know, 3 points is a must. Performance, you know, is going to be massive as well. And it's important as many people go out and support them as possible to help them get the 3 points. But I think in amongst the squad, they'll know that Tuesday's a must win.
Sophie Howard came out after the game and said that Scotland showed great character. Is great character enough at this stage?
I don't think it is. I think there has been a tendency for some fairly glib sound bites at points in the aftermath of fairly inauspicious performances at international level. I think what you have seen across recent seasons from Scotland is a failure to really be more than the sum of their parts. I think there would be a lot of sympathy in one respect for Pedro Martinez Losa and the fact that he's lost key players. I think any team would find it difficult to cope without someone like Caroline Weir. Clearly a world-class talent, one of the very few world-class talents that Scotland have. Without Emma Watson, obviously not quite as experienced as Caroline, but a very effective and exciting young talent. Christy Grimshaw is the latest to go out with another ACL. The goalkeeper, Sandy McKeever, had to go off with what looks like another serious injury. She won't play tomorrow night. So I think there is an element of sympathy for the fact that you've lost key players, but I just don't think that you've seen Scotland really go in and hold their own at any points. The only real performance of note that I think you could point to across recent seasons was a game in the Stadium of Light back in September. They obviously lost to England in the Nations League, but I think it was a performance that there were many, many positives in. But overall, that campaign was very sobering for Scotland when they came up against quality opposition. And since they were last at a major tournament in 2019, I think the bar has risen across European football as a whole. What you've seen is a rapid progression within the women's game, and that's been reflected in resources that other countries have put into it, at the alacrity with which they have come on. And I think there's a feeling that Scotland have stagnated. It feels stale at points, and I think you need way more than what you're getting just now out of the squad.
And as we've said, Scotland take on Slovakia tomorrow night. It's a 7:35 PM kickoff at Hampden. Paul, is it the kind of game where Scotland need a performance as well as a victory?
I think so, yeah. I think so. I think there'll be a lot of disappointed fans after Friday night, but listen, the players will know that. They're a very transparent group. You know, you look at the quality that's in there, they've got the leadership and Rachel Causey and players like Erin, and I know what Sam Kerr as well the other night done really well, Chelsea Cornett, other players, so they'll know what it means. You know, I know what this will mean to them as well, and they'll be desperate to win the game tomorrow night.
And with 3 out of the 4 teams qualifying from this group, that should be enough. There should be enough scope there for Scotland to qualify.
Yeah, I think barring a disaster, they will make the playoffs. It's just it becomes fairly convoluted once you get to that stage. It's quite a tough system to negotiate to actually force their hand all the way into the European Championships. The very fact that they were demoted after the Nations League campaign into League B means that they can't qualify automatically, that they need to go through this playoff process. However, the teams that could fall in to those playoffs, I think, could be very daunting for Scotland to come up against.
Paul, if we look at it from more of a domestic level, how important is it to have a successful national team in order to grow the game from the roots downwards?
So I think, you know, touching on, I'll start with under-19s just now as well, who are away, and you know, they're part of the European Championship group as well, and they've had 2 fantastic results, and even under-17s done really well recently as well. So certainly at youth national level, the quality's there. You know, I know the good work that's going on just now behind the scenes at the Scottish FA with Mick McArdle, who's come into post, the work he's doing, you know, so we can aspire the next generation of talent coming through. And you know, you look at Kirsten McLean, and you mentioned Emma Watson as well, who have come through the system recently and done really well. So, you know, the profile of the game's changing. You know, all the time we've got so many players that are playing over the continent now, especially in Europe. You know, the amount of players we've got playing in England, players playing in Italy as well. So, you know, the profile is continually rising, and I think for us it's important that we need to grow with that.
Are we starting to see those young players domestically that could pave a bright future for the Scottish national team?
I think you're certainly seeing the fruition of the first generation who have come through an academy structure. I think what you're starting to see is the benefits they've had from early intervention coaching, from elite coaching at a young age. And you would think of someone like Mia Macaulay this season, 17, had a fantastic campaign domestically for Rangers. Obviously Emma Watson in a very similar vein last term went down to Manchester United, and just hugely unfortunate to pick up such a serious injury when she was basically just in the door. But I think what you are seeing is that the system's working. I think this is the first real generation that have had the benefit of proper coaching and everything that goes with that inside the women's game, and a very tailored and tapered approach to pushing them into a professional context. I think it's probably just a wee bit too early to see that you're going to see that reflected in the fortunes of the national team, but I think it's going in the right direction. I think it's important that process has been put in place, and I think you're seeing players emerging from that talent cycle at the minute. Though I think fundamentally, when you look at the Scotland squad, at the senior Scotland squad, you want to be pushing major tournaments. It's so important in so many aspects that you're represented at the European Championships, at the World Cup. One, for the finances that brings in, that you can redistribute amongst clubs, but also two, for the profile of the game, for what it does to the game in this country. Because when you're talking about attracting fans to get along to Hampden, to go to Fir Park on Sunday and watch Motherwell, what you need to see is successful teams. And I think if you can get Scotland to a major tournament, that's reflected in numbers. You saw it in England, you saw it with the interest that was all around the Lionesses following the European Championship victory and the World Cup final. And I think for Scotland, you just don't want to be lost in that slipstream of failing to make it.
Well, we look forward to that qualifier with Slovakia at Hampden. There are still tickets available. You can get along tonight. Moving on to domestic matters, it's a fraught finale to the SWPL with a tantalising possibility of another photo finish. Here are the fixtures coming up this weekend. On Friday, we have that massive Edinburgh derby of Hearts against Hibs at 7:30. On Sunday, it's Spartans against Montrose, Aberdeen against Hamilton, Rangers take on Glasgow City in that massive clash at the top of the table, as we'll touch on with Paul here. Motherwell at home to Dundee United at Fir Park, and Partick Thistle hosting Celtic. Just the small matter of the Edinburgh derby on Friday night then, Paul. How big an occasion is this one?
I think it's huge for both clubs. Disappointed the game is no Tynecastle. I think when you look at the good work that both clubs have done in Edinburgh, and the fact that it's been, you know, each other's stadiums the last couple of games. So, but you know, it's going to be an interesting game. Both teams are in a good place. So it'll be really interesting to see who comes out on top on Friday night.
Alison, you looking forward to this game?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been fairly intriguing this season. I think Hearts can really just go and cement that fourth place if they get the win. And Hibs, what we've seen, were a real dominant force within the women's game for so long. I think if Hearts finish above them this season, it kind of points to a shift just even in the culture within Edinburgh. But I'd echo what Paul said there. I think it would have been nice to see this game given a bigger platform. What you've seen across recent seasons are record attendances at this fixture. They were broken in the laterally last season, but for a while that was a record attendance. You saw Hearts and Hibs fans getting behind it, getting out in good numbers, a real bit of support for the game. So I think Oriam's a fantastic complex, a great place for Hearts to be based, to train, but I think in terms of the magnitude of the game, it would have been nicer to see it elevated and given the platform it deserves. But yeah, huge game for both teams, and I think you've all had a good campaign, a fairly solid campaign for Hearts. Hibs, though, I think if they come out of it with the win, it just puts it all back in the mix again.
As we spoke about, this could be a massive weekend for the title race. If we take a look at the league table in the SWPL, Rangers leading the way there with 24 games played and 63 points. Celtic just behind them on 62 points, and Glasgow City also in the mix with 59 points. That massive game this weekend between Rangers and Glasgow City. It seems to be very much the game of the weekend. Paul, are these the kind of games where the league can be won and lost at this stage?
I think so. I think for Glasgow City, they must take something from the game. You know, there's a wee gap starting to appear just now. I think, you know, City need to take some. I'm not saying they need to win the game, but in order to stay in it, I think they need to get at least a point in the game. Rangers, you know, 2 weeks ago against Hibs, get a fantastic result. Showed a real, you know, a lot of character as well to get the 3 points after coming from behind. And Celtic get a huge result against Glasgow City as well at Petershill, which is always a different venue, you know, a difficult venue to play at. So, you know, both of the teams right now are starting to motor, and it's really important for Glasgow City. They need to stay with them. Alison,
does a win for Joe Potter's side basically render Glasgow City's title chance finished?
I think it's probably too premature to count them out just yet. I think at this point last season, you saw Glasgow City sitting with an 8-point cushion, and it unravelled fairly quickly on the back of a couple of big results. I think the split means it's too premature to read anything into it. I do think realistically they probably have to take something. I think they probably need a point. However, I think the split means it's very competitive games. I read a stat actually last week that after the split, the Scottish Women's Premier League is the most competitive league across Europe because of the competitive element in terms of teams being capable of taking points off of one another. And you saw Rangers slipping up to Partick Thistle. Celtic lost points to Hearts. So while I think the focal point inevitably falls on the games between the teams against one another in the top three, I think it is possible for points to be shipped elsewhere, as we've seen this term. City, I think, will know. They really will. They want to take something from the game. I think it's important for them in a psychological aspect to take something from the game. They've lost to Celtic last weekend. I don't think they'll want to follow that up with another defeat. I think they'll just want to steady things. But of course, Rangers at home. Rangers have been flying for so much of this season. They've really set a pace throughout the duration of this campaign. I think they'll fancy this. If they come out of it as winners, I think they'll start to see the final straight in sight.
As Alison touched on there, maybe a few cracks starting to appear as the pressure gets to the teams at the top?
I think we've seen that last season as well. I think, you know, listen, the three of them will still fancy it. You know, Rangers, Celtic, Glasgow City. The three of them will fancy this. You know, even though we've spoken about Glasgow City and a wee gap there and how Sunday they must take some, we've still got some real quality in there as well. As do Celtic, as do Rangers, you know, so it's going to be a really interesting, you know, couple of weeks for the games, and, you know, there's still a round of games they need to play against each other as well, so there's still a lot to play for.
Paul, just coming on to your game, you're at home playing at Fir Park this weekend against Dundee United. Why should supporters come along to Fir Park to support the team this weekend?
Listen, you know, try to raise the profile. You know, the women's game in general, but the women's team at Motherwell. You know, it's been an ongoing process since I came in the door 2.5 years ago, and this is a platform the players aspire to play at, top stadiums. You know, and it's really important for us that as many Motherwell supporters come out and support these players as best as possible. I said the third time we've played at Fir Park. It's a fantastic stadium, a fantastic surface as well. So, girls are not used to playing on grass, but it's something that we'll make sure in our preparation this week that, you know, we'll do that. We'll get a wee training session on grass just to get used to it. But no, it's a fantastic platform for all the teams to play at their home venues as well. There's games coming up at Celtic Park. There's games being at Ibrox this season. So it's great that the players get the opportunity to play in the stadiums.
Free access as well, Paul, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, so we've opened the stadium for free, and we've done that the last couple of times we've played there as well. So encourages as many people to come and watch as possible. What we've tried to do as well is no change of time. Our normal time is 4 o'clock on a Sunday at K Park, so we've kept the times the same. So, but obviously this time is going to be different. You know, the players, you know, it's a fantastic occasion for them as well, for both teams, for Dundee United as well, to come and get the opportunity to play at Fir Park as well. So, no, it's a unique opportunity, and it's one we're really looking forward to.
I think it's just important too that the women's platform's given that stage on a consistent basis, that it helps you to grow it, to build a fan base, to get people out, and you're hoping that if people come along and enjoy the game, that they stick with you.
Oh, brilliant. Listen, the last 2 times we've played there, we've had over 800 fans both times, so, and we've opened the stadium for nothing. So, you know, families, you know, I'm sure there'll be a lot of the players will invite their family, friends, etc. And I know a lot of the Motherwell support will come there as possible. So again, it goes back to how we raise the profile. You know, getting an opportunity to play in these stadiums for the players is different class.
Do you notice a marked difference in the atmosphere almost in the build-up to these games, knowing that the team is going to be playing at the main stadium?
Yeah, we'll just try and keep it as normal as possible, but obviously it's going to be there in the back of their heads. We know that, but it's important that we manage that. We manage the emotion this week, and I think what we have experienced in the last couple of years is the first time we played there 2 seasons ago. We played Hamilton, we lost the game 1-0. In the build up to that, we spoke about, you know, outcomes. You know, what if this happens, what if that happens, and it's important with our preparation. We've done that. Last year we played against Glasgow Women, we had a different outcome in the game, we had a really positive result. And again, we had to deal with the what ifs. And this week will be no different, you know, in our preparation. The players know that, you know, for us right now, we're in a really good spot. You know, we're in a good place. We have had some really positive performances, some positive results, and we'll just try to build on that.
That's brilliant, Paul. We wish you every success for the day and hope it all goes well. That is all from us here on the Women's Football Show today. Thank you to Paul, thank you to Alison for joining me. I've been your host, Blair. Thanks for watching.